Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. The Rabbinic Cynic. Call me Andrew, Rabbi Dude. If you like this podcast, don't forget to hit like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, The Rabbinic Cynic, or hit like and share on Facebook. Today, I want to talk about remembrance. This idea of remembering people who we've lost. And I want to dedicate today's podcast to Kal David, of blessed memory, the blues legend, blues guitarist, also resident of the Coachella Valley, resident of the desert here for many, many years. If you want to, I'm not going to. If you want to read his obituary or read about his life, this is what we do in Judaism. We celebrate life. I recommend Bruce Fessier wrote a wonderful piece that I shared on Facebook. You can read that. Former Desert Sun, a music journalist, and now community influencer. So if you want to learn really who Kal David was, I think Bruce did a wonderful job on that. Remembrance in Judaism is something that it gives us immortality. That is the essence of how we come to terms with losing people that we love. This week was kind of poignant for me, and I was thinking about doing this today on the show. Anyway, it was my mother-in-law's yortzeit. Remember when my mother-in-law passed away 3 years ago in 2019, cancer and of ovarian cancer. We as Jewish tradition, we light a candle on the night before. Well, it's not the night before. It's in Judaism, we count the days of somewhat. We count the Hebrew date is from sundown to sundown so it starts on the previous day, if it might, right? So Sunday night would be the beginning. So we lit the candle, and so you look at the candle, and it's almost like that person's there with you, and it gives you that feeling of remembering, missing them, and also that they're here again, that they're the things that they gave to you have influenced you, that influence in your lives. It's a very powerful feeling. And when you say Kaddish, if you go to a synagogue, say Kaddish. I said the Kaddish at home with my wife. And when you say the Kaddish, that prayer of elevation, this prayer, you're elevating. The idea is you're elevating the soul, but really what you're doing is you're elevating there's an immortality there, and recognizing the influence that they've had in your lives. Kal David influenced many people in his life as a musician, especially here in the desert. But I mean, just as a musician in general. But in the desert, I remember. I'm just going to give my own personal remembrance of Kal, and that was as a young rabbi. He was quite entertained. He opened this wonderful place called the Blue Guitar in 1998, and this is the year I moved to the desert from Israel. And Kal had a jam night where musicians from all over the world would come visiting, and all the local musicians, and he'd give everyone an opportunity. Even a guy like me who was just starting out, thought it was entertaining that I was a rabbi. Kal happened to have been born Jewish, so he thought that was entertaining. This rabbi is also playing Rolling Stones up on his stage, and it was quite intimidating. Man was a wonderful guitarist, singer, and songwriter, but that generosity of spirit really, translated to a lot of the music community here. I know a number of my friends are mentored by him, close friends with him. Again, I jumped on bandwagons, and I was acquainted with Kal, but he meant a lot to a lot of people out here, especially in not just here, but also in the blues community in general. And so, I want to dedicate that to his remembrance. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his wife, Laurie, who they performed together. We're together for 45 years. Anyway, Kal was a true mensch, wonderful human being. And so that's my little piece. If you want to understand more, learn more about Kal, again, go to Bruce Fessier's Facebook. I shared it on my Facebook page, but that really Bruce really said it perfectly. again, it seems to be that death has followed. It follows us, right? Death is such a part of life. It's hard to come to terms with. Again, yesterday it was horrible to hear of an IDF soldier that was killed in friendly fire. Natan Fitoussi, first sergeant, staff sergeant Natan Fitoussi. There's that as a father of an IDF special forces IDF soldier, a lochem, as we call them, warriors. It's personal. In Israel, it's very personal when we see our soldiers killed. It's like we've lost a family member, and so again, my heart goes out to the family of Sergeant Fitoussi, and we're all part of the same family. We all feel that loss. Despite whatever your politics is when it comes, every Israeli has to serve, right? And that's what we do. And it's and we know that our children are going to have to serve. I only have we moved to the States, but one of my children did go back to serve, and continues as a Special Forces reserve soldier. It's part of what's this. If you take the politics aside of Israel, and all we see is the immediate. We don't see the history of why the state of Israel is so important to the Jewish people. I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's my son's unit. Why it's so important to the survival of the Jewish people. Israel is our homeland. It's not about religion. It's about we're a nation. We're not just a religion. We're also a nation. We're a people. And so the service of our soldiers is not. It has become so politicized. This idea, and I don't think Israel does a great PR job. And that's part of the issue. The soldiers are not. These soldiers are defending the Jewish homeland, and it's important to us to remember that as our Holocaust survivors, as the survivors of the Holocaust, that generation is dying out. It's getting lost a little bit. This idea of what it means for the survival of the Jewish people after 2,000 years of exile, finally have our homeland, and we're just trying to create this piece of beauty in the Middle East, and in our homeland. This is where we came. This is where we come from. There's never been a time when there haven't been Jews living in Israel, and that brings me to another interesting idea that I read. And I'm a big sci-fi fan. It's funny. I go for my morning walks. I'm a big science fan. I'm fascinated by space. I'm fascinated by the astronomy. And I was walking. I get up and I walk at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I almost bumped into someone. I'm looking at a planet, and I'm saying, "What planet is that?" And I'm on my app and I'm looking at it, and it turns out to be Venus. And Venus has all these different the like phases of the moon. Venus is the way the shadows are cast. Anyway, and I almost walked into somebody, and then I read an interesting article that there's a mission called Helios, where they're planning on creating energy on the moon, creating oxygen on the moon. And it's an Israeli company is at the forefront of this. Just signed a big deal where they're going to make space travel to the moon, so you can get your vacations on the moon. And I've always wanted to go into space. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So if I can get a free trip up there, I don't know it's going to happen in my lifetime, but maybe in our kids' lifetimes. But they've figured out a way to make energy on the moon, oxygen on the moon. Isn't that amazing? That's one of those innovations. This small little country is innovating this way where humanity can grab a foothold on the moon, create oxygen, create a source of fuel, maybe and solve our own energy crisis here. And that brings me on to my next topic, the energy crisis. Right, there was a bill signed in Congress, the president signed an important climate bill. It was also a bill that deals with prescription medication, also trying to offset the horrible inflation that we're noticing, but it didn't go far enough. Right? There's this frustration. It didn't go far enough. And I'm not here to play armchair or computer chair quarterback on the difficulties of passing meaningful legislation. But the one thing that was very apparent from it is that, there's so many special interests in our politics that that it was impossible for them to do anything. It's like there was a disappointment there that it didn't go far enough, right? What about giving basic things that most countries in the world have, right? Basic things like childcare, free childcare, so that people can go back to work. Why couldn't the Republicans jump on that? Why couldn't they jump on that? I don't know. I don't get it, right? I do get it because, this is not a democracy. The Senate, right? The Senate is disproportionate, does not represent the real wishes of the people. It represents minority interests are represented. And this does not just a Republican issue. It's a Democrat issue. It's a political issue across the board. There's special interests. They're the strings. They're the godfathers that are controlling the puppets of our politicians. And so I think it's commendable that they were able to come to some kind of agreement. But, why is the healthcare system here so fucked, right? Why is it so expensive? I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was telling me how his healthcare costs jump back and forth. I mean, wasn't the Affordable Care Act supposed to fix that, right? Why are the prescription medications ridiculously priced? I could buy the same albuterol that I use in Mexico or in Israel over the counter for a fraction of the price for what they're charging me as a copay here, right? So overcharging insurance companies are charging everybody else. It's a for-profit medical system. Yes, you can make arguments against it. There are waiting lines. Sometimes you have to wait for certain healthcare in countries that have nothing's perfect, but at the same time, healthcare is a human right. Workers, we want to get people back to work. You want to improve the economy. Well, why is the wealth inequity so terrible in this country? And this again goes back to this Jewish idea of justice you shall pursue wherever you can find it, right? And we saw these primaries yesterday. Liz Cheney lost her. That's it. She's out, right? You would think Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, right? Dick Cheney, Darth Vader. Who would have thought his daughter would be the bastion of standing up to the autocracy, to the elements of fascism that we see rising in certain aspects of our community, in our political culture. All she did was saying that an uprising on January 6th is bad. She signed for that's it. She's out. She's out, right? And no one would ever call Liz Cheney a progressive. So so what's happening? I know it boggles the mind to me what is happening. And so, so the question is how do we get out of this? And I think the only real answer, as I've said before, is that's up to the next generation. Not next generation Star Trek, because for me everything goes back to Star Trek, but the next generation. And it's quite disturbing to see that the better angels not coming out. That when you see someone, I was once told, don't be so quick. I made a joke in a class once. I said, everyone thought Hitler was a clown. Now, I am not comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. Okay, not doing that. But everyone thought Hitler was a clown, didn't take him too seriously, and then look what happened, right? So I don't know if the Donald has the best interest of the United States at heart, the best interests of people at heart. I don't know what's in his heart. We can't see into the heart of others. But at the same time, I don't think this is a human being that brings out the best in people. And so you've got to ask yourself the question, why? Now, this is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is look at the way the world is going issue, right? The idea absolute power corrupts absolutely. Remember, there was probably one time when Donald Trump was a decent human being. Maybe there are a lot of people who still think he's a decent human being. And I'm not there to judge you if you love Donald Trump. I just you have to kind of look at somebody based on their actions. Who are they? Based on their actions. And and again, it goes back. Talked about this a few days ago. That film, the 13 Lives, where we saw Thailand come together to save these 13 lives. They were more important than their crops. They're more important than their economy. People from around the world were inspired. They put their own lives on the line. Soldiers every day put their lives on the line. They don't care. It's not about the politics, right? We can argue to our lives, we can argue about the politics of the decisions that the politicians make, the decision made by government for war, but really the soldiers are giving everything. They're giving everything to serve something higher than themselves, and mostly in return they don't get much gratitude, right? They get vets out there, and thank you for your service, veterans of all of our countries, veterans of the my countries anyway, United States, England, United States, UK, and Israel. These are my three nationalities, and so I thank you all for your service to our countries, my countries. But they give themselves for their buddies. They give themselves for their families. They give themselves so that people, unselfishly, and mostly in return, they don't get much gratitude from their governments, right? Cannon fodder is an old idea. They're just cannon fodder, right? The idea that I have an adult child who may have to fight and pay for their own equipment, right? Equipment's not that good. When they need the equipment, so they do fundraisers to raise money for equipment. I mean, U.S. soldiers probably have similar issues, right? It's got to be. I don't know as much about the U.S. military as I do the Israeli military, but at the same time, it's like we need to care about the people that work for us, the people that serve for us, the frontline workers, nurses and police and doctors and grocery store workers during the pandemic, right? And we're still in a pandemic, right? And there's what polio is coming back. What is wrong with the world? Why is polio an issue now? And I know it's partially because people would get vaccinated because they weren't able to. And, I read the New York City sewage system started finding polio in the New York City sewage system. Why? Because science deniers have convinced certain people not to vaccinate their children against polio, right? Where are we? Where are we going with this, right? Why shouldn't this? We're going back to the Dark Ages. We're going back to a disease that is that should not be around, is being allowed to mutate again and become infectious again. And people are going to start getting paralyzed. We thought this was in the past, but history it's a revolving door. Now, this is where I'm bring my little pop culture segment in. And as you know, I'm a big fan of history, and I love period pieces. And the Vikings has a new on Netflix. There's a new show called The Vikings Valhalla. And almost finished watching that, and I thought it was fascinating because you see this idea of how Viking diplomacy. Maybe we should go back to Viking diplomacy, right? I'm not suggesting we go around with axes and start killing. I wasn't suggesting that, folks. So if you think that I was doing that, I was not doing that. But you see that so this show, it talks about it's in the 11th century, and it's right. It takes place at the turn of the 11th century, right? So 1066, what happened, right? Remember the Normans took over England. That was the last time England was ever invaded, right? It was almost invaded by the Nazis, but good old Churchill stood up, and the British. I remember my grandmother telling me she would go into during the Blitz. My grandmother was afraid to cross, blessed memory, lived to 100 years old, got a message from the Queen, and she remembers going into those to the underground during the Blitz. And we held. Remember, World War II started in 1939, not 1942, right? But it was the fortitude of the British. Where was I going with this? I was definitely going somewhere with this. Diplomacy. Viking diplomacy was, right, compromise. What do we see today? Something happened yesterday. Well, today, depending on where you are in the world. Turkey and Israel, they're friends again. Or are they not friends again? But they're friends again. And it's quite important. Turkey and Israel used to be, there was a real difficult time there. So we're seeing that age of diplomacy is coming back. Now, the now forgotten war of the Ukraine, there needs to be some diplomacy there, right? Where's that, right? Everyone's too frightened. That was my dog Chester barking. Everyone's too frightened to piss off Russia. So, right, so they're kind of hedging their bets here, supporting but not supporting. But there's the toll on human lives that's happening here. And so, I recommend the show Vikings. It's entertaining, but it kind of also shows you a kind of a glimpse into human diplomacy and how that kind of plays out. So with that, I'm going to end my podcast with that. If you like that, find diplomacy, but with each other, right? We need to be diplomatic. We need to talk to each other, even people that we perceive as the other, even that we perceive as our enemies. Because, as I said, the golden tenet of Judaism, the golden tenet of most religion, all the world religions, and all of the world secularist religions or secularist beliefs, is the betterment of humanity. Is to do unto others as you have done unto yourself. And once again, my condolences to the family, to the family of Kal David's family, to his wife Laurie, and to the music community in general. It's one of my tribes out here. And also my condolences to the Fitoussi family and all of the members of his unit and soldiers in the IDF, and all of you who have lost loved ones and the silent suffering of people. This is an in memoriam. This is a way our immortality. Remember the immortality. Our immortality is what we do today. Today, take today by the bollocks. Take today. And do everything that you could possibly do to make this a better world today. That is your legacy. There is your immortality, is what we do today, because maybe there isn't a tomorrow. And how we remember and how we are influenced, as it says in Gladiator, will echo for eternity. What we do today will echo for eternity. And that is not just a platitude. It is the truth. That's a pure truth of humanity, that the impact that we have, the remembrance that people have of us will live on. And the more that we do, the longer it will live on. Which brings me to the Vulcan farewell. Live long and prosper. And I'll see you all tomorrow or on the other side. Have a great Wednesday.